Oh, hey! I'm glad you're here. Now, normally this would be where I wax poetically about life in a video store, but instead, I'm joined by my co host Sarah Marshall. Thank you for being here.
Hey!
Sometimes with scheduling, you aren't able to record in the episodes, and then it's when I can get guests in. And, well, you weren't in the first 2 episodes, which means with the new release late returns, that's 4 episodes, and I didn't want people to wonder where you were. So I thought we'd have a little check in here.
Cool. Sounds good.
How's your summer?
So awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've been summering it up, which is really great. We don't always do that. We don't always have the chance to do it, but we have been doing all the things. We went to the ocean, we went to the lake, we went to Seattle. It's awesome.
Yeah. It was really awesome. We went to the lake because we do that every year now for my birthday.
Yeah, you're a lake guy.
Yeah, I'm a lake guy. I'm like the creature from the lagoon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We'll workshop it. This is my birthday week. If you're listening to this on the day it's released, tomorrow is my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So very exciting times. Exciting times. I also wanted to mention up top that our next episode, Sarah, you're back.
I'm back.
And I won't reveal who the guest is, but it's a very special episode, I feel. Very, very fun. So be sure to listen to that when it comes out a week from today.
Yeah, for everybody, just know that Dirk made some of my dreams come true with this guest. So very exciting.
I did. I'll just say that I'm trying not to give anything away, but I made a special thing happen. I planned an episode just for you in a way. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Is it my birthday?
Yes. It's early. It's not November. But yes, be sure to listen to that. But before we get to the episode with Lindsay here, I thought we could just talk about some of the things that we've seen lately. Just you and I, because we've seen some stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, great.
Throw some stuff out there.
First, I want to give a shout out to Jeff Whitmire. Jeff just put out a song called Cinnabite, which is a Hellraiser parody of Kryptonite. It's very funny, very creative. He's Jeff Whitmire1 on Twitter. Be sure and check that out. Support that guy and his cool Hellraiser knowledge.
Who doesn't want more Hellraiser stuff in their life?
Well, there's going to be a bunch more because I think there's a TV show and a movie coming out.
Ooh,
so. Yeah,
fun.
I believe that's true. And Pinhead's a woman now.
Great.
Yeah, so that's good.
Always should have been.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Okay. I think there should have been more. Why was it always just Pinhead? You know what I mean? There was a couple female Cenobites, but they should have just been changing it all the time out of 12 movies or whatever they got up to.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe saw one.
I didn't make you watch two? Two's my favorite.
Maybe you did. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's the one you've seen, because it also
Could
has
be.
part of one in it. It's one of those good movies where they're just like, remember a little bit of this? Okay, let's go.
They're like, hey, we spent all this time and money on this first one.
Yeah.
We're gonna suck in those clips.
Yes, exactly. Clip suckers. Next, let's talk about a trailer that just was released. It was very incendiary on the Twitter. Everyone seemed to have an opinion on it, and that is Munsters, the new Rob Zombie movie. I just showed you the trailer.
Yeah.
It's fresh in your mind.
Fresh off the mind.
What do you got?
Well, I think the bigger question is, I feel like people are either in the Munster camp or the Addams Family camp, and I've always been in the Addams Family camp.
Sure, yeah.
So Munsters for me is not creepy enough, I guess. And so, I don't know. I think it's a weird thing for Rob Zombie to direct.
Yeah.
It's not creepy enough.
Right. It's campy. And
which isn't always my thing.
Sure. No, it's not. I like your take on it 100%. I would be an Addams Family guy too.
Sure.
I watched both when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'd take any monster any way you can give it to me. The thing about the Munsters is that if you go back and rewatch it, it's kind of just one joke over and over and over because it's just them not realizing they're monsters while other people are like, monsters!
Yeah.
And then they're just like, what are you talking about? That's basically the whole thing. And it, it's repetitive. People were very upset about how this looks, but I don't know. It's for children, so I don't even know what kids would watch this. Like who it's really for is going to kind of be a theme for this conversation. But
well, I feel like Munsters are more rockabilly vibe,
well, of
and
course.
the movie feels like more like that vibe. So that's who's gonna watch it.
Yeah. My whole takeaway from it was that because people were like, "Oh, avoid this, don't watch it or whatever." I'll 100% watch it.
Sure.
We've watched everything Rob Zombie's put out movie-wise, and my favorite thing about his features and why I'm glad it's getting a physical release is that the making ofs for his movies and the director commentary are like incredibly inspiring for me because he's somebody who's like doing their own thing. First of all, he's a really talented artist. Then you add that he's a musician. Then you add that can direct stuff. It's just like that's someone with a lot of talents. And I'm not saying you have to like it all. I don't have like a Rob Zombie jacket I wear around or anything. I don't know why I went straight to jacket.
I wish I did now.
Sure.
Well, right now I want a Rob Zombie jacket.
I have some time before your birthday, so I can get you that. But I find creative people like that incredibly inspiring. And when I used to have my old job where I would work 5 weeks and have a week to 2 weeks off, and nobody else was on that schedule, by like the third day, I just felt like I had no point in my life. I didn't know what I was doing. And if I put a movie on, the whole day I would do nothing. The whole day was shot. But if I put on The Devil's Rejects with the commentary or the making of, I felt inspired and invigorated by someone creating something, not somebody that has like millions and millions and millions of dollars. You know, it's like somebody getting their friends together, making something happen. And that spirit to me is like, I give me more of that. If that's on a Munsters Blu-ray, great. I'll buy it.
Well, I mean, I knew when you showed me the trailer that we would be watching it. I think we always watch a Rob Zombie thing, and I think that is true. I like the spirit of the filmmaking that he imbibes, you know, and he always has his wife as the star, which of course, great. Love that. Love.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we will update once it's seen.
Yeah, and I'm excited to show our daughter who would have no frame of reference for the Munsters. She's seen Addams Family, we have the box set, but I've never shown her the Munsters, so we'll see what she thinks of that.
Yeah, she'll probably dig it.
I hope so. We'll see. Next, let's go to some television. The new season of American Horror Story just started. And what do you think so far? We're like, what, 2 episodes in?
Yeah, I think 2 episodes in. And we've watched all of them. All the American Horror Stories. And, you know, I, of course, love The Witches the most.
That was the third one, right?
Sure, yeah, I don't know.
Because I watched the first episode of the first season. And then I was like, I'm good with whatever this is.
Yeah.
And then you watched all of that season. You watched the second season. I think with The Witches is the third, could be the fourth. And that's where you brought me back in because you were like, it's Witches, it's Stevie Nicks. And I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. And then I've watched with you since then.
Yeah. So I don't love all of them, but I've watched all of them. Same thing. And so this new one just started. It seems like it's shorts instead of a long series where it's all the same thing. So it feels like they're bringing sort of past subjects into these new short stories. First short story, didn't like it.
No, I actually was so mad because I just was like, I'm not going to spoil it because this is a new thing, but there's just something they do to the main character that's just so mean-spirited. And even if like it's leading to the climax of the episode or whatever, I just was like, I don't need this anymore. I don't want to see the outsider get dumped on by these people.
Yeah, I think it's the wrong time to make a movie where, somebody who's being bullied kills people.
Exactly.
I think it's always the wrong time. I don't think it's the message that we need to be. And these are horror stories. I get it.
Sure.
But, I was just immediately like, nah.
Yeah.
Don't need it right now. Thank you.
Not the time. Read The Room, American Horror Stories.
But I mean, I think at the same time, that's what they're doing.
I get it. It's
a
just
horror story. It's a terrible thing.
It's not like it's a new story. Like it's been done before. So I don't need that kind of rage porn. Then in the movies, right when you took a drink, we watched Jurassic World Dominion. I'll let you have the floor. What did you think of this? Because first of all,
I get to speak on Jurassic World.
Yeah. Yeah.
My expertise shines through.
Please. There's nothing you love more. It's dinosaurs, really.
Well, I mean,
and blockbusters.
Yeah. But at the same time, I get it. I get the dinosaur blockbuster movie and why it exists. I remember seeing the first Jurassic Park at a movie theater that doesn't exist anymore, Eastgate on 82nd in Clackamas is where I saw it.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Goodbye. But it was a very fun and exhilarating experience to go and see it. And I remember the vibrations in the theater when the very first, don't know dinosaur names, big dinosaur stomps through and everything shakes. I remember being like, whoa, this is cool. This is something I haven't experienced. I had seen the only other dinosaur movie I'd seen was Baby.
Yes.
So this was cool. I think I saw the other ones probably after that just because I had such a great experience with the first one. And I mean, I think this one was great. It gives you all the things, all the dinosaur needs are filled. I think this movie is very actiony. There's a lot
Oh my
happening.
God, yes.
They're going through all these different places on big airplanes. But I think that's who, if you have kids that are into airplanes and
Mm-hmm.
dinosaurs, they want to see airplanes and dinosaurs. And to keep their attention, you have to keep everything very fast paced. I know that you like a lot of kills in movies. That
Sure.
was not in this movie. And I think it's probably because it's for a little younger audience, I'm guessing. But I had fun with it. I liked the ending. I think they brought it all together really beautiful that we, need to live in harmony together. Like, I felt like it was a very great closure for a blockbuster movie to have.
Mm-hmm.
That's my Jurassic Park
Yeah, it's great.
pick.
It's one of my favorite things to do is talk movies with you, especially if it's like something that you have no interest in, because every
Mm-hmm.
single time you have these very like humanitarian experiences. Like it's not rooted in like good versus bad. You always find very interesting characteristics to talk about. So yeah, perfect. For me, I instantly just thought, who is this for when I was watching
Mm-hmm.
this movie? And I'll explain why. So Jaws, amazing. And then they keep making like shark movies and they keep doing, we'll make the sharks bigger and all this stuff
Mm-hmm.
that's totally unnecessary. Because what do you want in the shark? You want the shark to eat the people. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And Jurassic Park, like you said, spectacle. I mean, my jaw was like on the floor when it showed those dinosaurs. The
Mm-hmm.
special effects still holds up, but it was just
Yeah.
like the whimsy and everything. It was just amazing and creative. And there's kills in it, and they're very memorable. The guy on the toilet is one of the best. It's very poignant
Mm-hmm.
and creative. The sequels, I watched them all. You know me, I'll watch all the Where Things Eat People movies. This movie is like, there's a part where he's riding a horse and wrangling dinosaurs, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
who wanted this? Who was the person that was like, what if he's on a horse? And I think it's like a CG horse. And then there's a part where he's riding motorcycles because apparently he has to ride motorcycles and race the dinosaurs now. That's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the whole time just going, why is this like James Bond? Like, what is this? Like, just have it stick its head in a window and eat somebody. Like, just
Yeah.
do something.
Well, it was supposed to be sort of like this evolution of like bringing them into a
Right.
world where there are other animals because that hadn't really happened before, where they could live together. And so that
Yeah.
was like the sort of goal of this, like, if we are all going to live in this earth, we all need to be able to be around each other and be cool.
Yeah.
And so, that's what they're showing sort of in those different things. You haven't seen like the dinosaurs and horses run together
Yeah.
freely, so they have to like be racing them first. It's
Oh my
like a
gosh.
step of it.
And I know a lot of people talk about how the Chris Pratt keeps putting his hand up to like be like, "Oh, dinosaur!" Like, this is my hand, and
Mm.
I get that that's annoying to people, but I find I have more issue with what I call action movie man mouth, which is it was perfected, I think, by Bruce Willis because he used to be like a sly dog on the
Mm-hmm.
shows, and he would be cracking wise, and you could always tell by his little smirk. But then when he became an action star, he gets Action Man mouth, and Action Man mouth is where they make the mouth very small, like
Mm.
I'm doing right now,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and
Small
they
mouth.
kind of purse their lips, so
Mm-hmm.
you know, like
Yep.
they mean
Lips are
business
pursed.
and they're very
Mm-hmm.
serious, not making jokes. And Chris Pratt does that so much in this movie, so you know, like, oh, this isn't fun, Chris Pratt. He's got Action Man mouth, and so it's just every time it shows him, I'm like, oh, it's just so Action Man mouthed in
Oh,
every
okay.
scene.
I'll have to rewatch it.
Sure,
Didn't notice.
let's do that. It's so long, this movie. And my only problem, and first of all, I thought the acting was great. I thought the characters were interesting. I don't know why there's a whole clone situation, but I won't get into that. But in the opening scenes of this movie, it's just a montage. I'm not spoiling anything, but it's the opening part. This giant dinosaur eats like a crab ship thing that's bringing in a harvest and tips the boat over. And then it cuts right to, and they're just showing like how dinosaurs are kind of trying to integrate with the humans or whatever. Every single clip is a movie I'd rather watch than Jurassic World Dominion. Like there was a part where this kid is being attacked by tiny little dinosaurs. I'm guessing it's being filmed by the parents. I don't know why this would be
Mm-hmm.
being filmed at all, but I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what is their relationship like? Because they're not helping that child. And then it just cuts to another sequence of like something else where a dinosaur is attacking a person. I wanted all of those. I want to see
Oh, yeah.
those movies. And
Mhm.
instead, then they're like, let's go to a facility and talk to this guy in a coat. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
didn't want this part. I wanted dinosaurs. This is a
Yeah.
dinosaur movie.
Want the things to eat the people.
Eat the people. It's very simple. Why are we in Monaco right now? Now we're on an airplane. Like, I was
Because it,
just,
it was very Indiana Jones. It was more actiony than creature feature, I feel
right.
like.
And there's one sequence on the ice where you were like, this is cool.
I thought it was cool with the half ice swimming
Dinosaur
dinosaur.
chicken guy.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it looked good. I thought
Yeah.
it was something we hadn't seen where they could be like in water and on land and scary
Yeah.
and, you know.
But my problem was that with that part was that it was like it's so fast that they were
Hmm.
just like, look at this cool sequence. Okay, moving on. And I was like, just let it breathe a little bit so we can get kind of scared for the Action Man mouth guy and the lady that he's with. But whatever. Long story short, if the movie's out now, we're probably gonna watch it again just to look at Chris Pratt's tiny mouth.
Yeah, now I have to see what you mean. I mean, I see what you mean because you just did it
Right.
for me, but I want to see him do it so I can really like
Sure.
get it.
And anyone listening, let me know your favorite Action Man mouth characters out there.
And if you want a picture of Dirk doing action man mouth, I can also make that happen
Oh,
as
no.
well.
T-shirts.
I
Finally.
shouldn't be the only one
Right.
to see this beauty.
Oh, thank you. I'll
Mhm.
put it up on Twitter. And then last, before we get to the episode, we just last night watched The Black Phone.
The Black Phone.
Yeah. What'd you think? You can go first again.
I liked this movie. I think that, it's definitely a horror movie for sure. I don't like really abusive children movies.
What?
This is a subject matter that is close to my heart. I don't want to see kids being hurt or tortured, but
Yeah.
they're also, I think kidnappers are one of the scariest things. I think it is what a lot of fear in movies comes from. And so I think that it's a character that can be very scary. A kidnapper is a scary thing.
Don't you feel like they should have just called them kid stealers or kid murderers? Because, like, napping just sounds pleasant.
Like a sweet little nap.
Yeah, like, oh, he's a kidnapper. And it sounds like, oh, he helps kids take naps. Well, I guess
Yeah,
that sounds
I
creepy
mean,
now that I
yeah.
say that.
No, I think it's all creepy
Yeah,
no
you're
matter
right.
what.
Okay, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, super creeps.
I
all
like
around.
naps, so I just didn't like the word nap being
Yeah,
dragged
I
through
don't
the.
think it's that kind of nap.
Okay.
That's not what they're talking about.
Got it.
But I liked this take on a movie because there's this kind of psychic vibe happening that this family sort of has, which brings you into a world of also like mental health. And I think that this movie does a really good job of showing the resiliency of children who come from abused homes. If for anything you see this special bond between the brother and the sister that they have because they have terrible parents, and that gets them through this awful situation. And I love the sister as a character. She is my favorite part of the movie. She's such a badass.
Mm-hmm.
I was just super into her and her ability to stand up for her brother, for herself, to her family. I was really into her character.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the writing of the film is actually really strong, which you don't often get, say, with horror exactly. And I feel like she's such a wonderful character to have in there.
Yeah, so watch it for her.
So,
Yeah, I would say watch it. I think it's scary. I think it's a scary subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's enough sometimes for a horror movie.
I think it handles pretty serious subject matter really well.
Mm-hmm.
But also is one of those things when I was watching it, I was like, would I watch this again? Because it's very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Would you watch this again?
Yeah, I think so, because I thought there was cool stuff happening with
Mm.
like the reveals of the different children and what they
Mm.
had to give the child who was currently napped, you
Right.
know? And so I think that I thought there was cool stuff happening. I kept pausing it to try to show you, but you didn't seem very interested. So
Just throw me under the bus there. I was a little put off by the mask, and I'll just be honest about that. It's just it looks, it has like a Spirit Halloween store feel to me, and that really takes me out of the movie. It could have been any design, but just like the big grinny, I don't know. So it's just something that I had to deal with me personally. I also did it have to be Ethan Hawke? Did you
well,
really?
that was the funny thing is that
know it
I
was
didn't
him?
know it was Ethan Hawke, so
Yeah.
I hadn't, of course, seen any trailers. I didn't know about the movie. You just have I come in and you start something.
Yeah.
I don't see the credits. I don't, I don't know
Yes.
who's in it. I'm just there for you.
Yeah.
So that was what happened here. And then at the end, when like the screensaver comes up, it's like Ethan Hawke's,
Oh, the end credits.
Yeah.
Screensaver?
No, not the end credits. Like when the show was over and then it went to the
Oh,
screen.
yeah, sure.
It was like Ethan Hawke and Black Phone, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, Ethan Hawke was, yeah, that was Ethan Hawke, I guess, because you don't see him.
Just the side of his face when he drops the groceries or whatever.
Yeah, that's not enough for me. I don't even think I saw it.
I should have screamed, "That's the side of Ethan Hawke's face."
Check it out. Yeah, so no, I don't think it needed to be him, but I think he did a good job of creating this person. The mask didn't bother me. That mask type is very much of our time, of what we are supposed to think is scary. So it's a lot of the same kind of shapes as like American Horror Story stuff.
Yeah, I don't like that
similar.
design.
It's like our current creepy 70s clown. It's like, and
which
it
I
will
don't
be
like clowns.
It will be part of this generation's scary thing, but it doesn't do much for me. I'm not terrified by it. I'm more terrified by a person's like stature, and I think that he did do a very good job of being,
there's a silhouette of him in a chair that
intimidating,
is like, whoa,
with his body. And I think that that was him, that could only be done by him playing that role. So I think that it was good. There was like just different parts that reminded me of other movies, but new little twists on it that I thought were really good. I would recommend people watching it for sure. I thought it was
great. Well, thank you for jumping on here for a brief little chat. You'll be back next week.
I'll be back next week.
Yay!
I haven't been kicked off the show,
That's
everybody.
Right.
I've just been busy.
The rumors could start flying, so I'm just saying. Well, Sarah, thank you for checking in, and we'll hear from you next week with a special guest. Very excited about that episode. But this episode, the film is Highway, the guest is Lindsay Wilkins, and this is VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns. Hello, and welcome to VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns, our casual chat format where I'm joined by a guest and we champion what's bringing us joy from the world of entertainment before taking a look back at a forgotten gem. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and you can find me on Letterboxd as Dirk Marshall, and the show is VHS_podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. I'm joined by host of the Schlock and Awe podcast, Lindsay Wilkins. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And when we get into the hidden gem, oh boy, it's gonna be amazing. Talk about hidden gem.
Yes. Now, in the event that no one's ever heard this podcast or yours, could you please tell people what Schlock and Awe is?
Yeah, thanks. Schlock and Awe is a double feature podcast that I do where we just talk about two movies. Technically, any two movies. They don't barely have to have a link. No, they usually do have some sort of link, like a very soon, finally upcoming episode from Dirk, where we do Wreck and Dread, which halfway through the episode, I realized it was found footage and a 3D double. So I was comparing the apartment angle, but no, that's the kind of the doubles that generally come on, like Dirk's episode. So it's a lot of fun. I love doing the show because you just talk about these amazing movies and just kind of they highlight things you don't think about when you think about the movie, like Dread. I think it's almost forgotten that it is actually a 3D movie.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And one of my favorite components of your podcast is that you and the guest also each pick two trailers to play before each film. And that kind of is a very, very fun way to get 4 more movies into an episode.
Yes, that was literally why I did it. I just wanted to talk about more movies, and I thought, well, we could just. I really love trailers, so let's pick trailers that we would actually, if we were pretending that we were showing this in a public forum, what would you show to get you in the mood and to talk about other movies? And yeah, I have so much fun doing it.
And how's everything going with the podcast?
It's going good. Yeah, no, just ticking along. I recorded a ton in April and start of May, so I was able to take a bit of a break and go on other people's podcasts, which is nice. So it's been kind of nice because June is this movie's June exploitation, where you just get to watch a whole bunch of weird ass movies, and I've been enjoying that. But no, the show is going really, really well. I love the friends I've made through it. I think that's the biggest thing. Like you, Daniel from Cobwebs, Matt from Film Feast, everyone, Anthony from Cult Movies.
Yeah.
And just other people who I've just become kind of friends with online. It's really cool. And that's kind of my favorite thing about it, is that yeah, I just get to talk about, I meet new people, we get to talk about movies and just get to know them as people, not yet, which is the best thing.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And you are Reading Geek on Twitter, so people can find you there. Well, it's time for the big question, Lindsay. This is a question that is generated from listeners. I keep it in the little VHS jewel case
Yeah.
here,
Oh, yeah.
and we'll just pick it at random. I have no idea what these are before each episode. This one comes from Jim McCusker. That's Jim MCCUSKER Jam9 on Instagram. Says, what's the first film you remember seeing in a theater?
I think it was a reissue of Disney Snow White. Not the original. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But I think it was, because I remember being absolutely terrified by the Queen turning into a hag.
Yeah.
And I remember crawling into my older sister's lap because I was not having any of this witchery that was happening on screen. And I think that is actually the first memory I have of a movie theater, being scared out of my wits.
Yeah, that's so funny because that's mine too.
Hey!
Yeah, it was a second run or just
yes,
or a third. Who really knows? Because in sometimes small towns, I think movies were playing and like companies were unaware that the theater was still playing this. It was a small town, but I remember going and seeing that film. And yeah, the witch was terrifying. I didn't know that just years later, I would actually be scared again by the movie Black Cauldron, which is a film that there's a part where a pig is being chased by a witch, I think, and it just scared me so much I left the theater.
Oh, I don't blame you. That was the first movie I watched when we got Disney Plus, like, because I had not seen it. Like, this was a movie I thought I had, but I realized it was actually the Sword in the Stone.
Oh yeah.
So I'm watching this movie going, Disney made this and got away with this and put this in theaters? Holy shit, that imagery of, because there's demons and you're right, witches chasing pigs or whatever that pig, I think he's a pig, or he's a pig-like creature.
I haven't revisited it, so all I know is that part.
It's really cool. It is actually quite a metal movie, surprise coming from Disney. It feels very heavy metal. And it's definitely worth a watch, but I can see children watching that and just like going, no, I'm sorry, I gotta leave, I gotta do something else, because I don't know what's happening here.
That's so funny. So Snow White, there you go, Jim. First memories of seeing a film in a theater. And that brings us to new releases, and we start with print. Anything that you're currently reading?
I am currently reading, sorry, actually I had the thing with me. I'm currently reading a cult classic by Sloane Crosley, which is kind of like the only way I can describe it is, if you know an author called Sally Rooney, it's almost the anti-Sally Rooney. It's about this woman who's being haunted by her ex-boyfriends all over New York, and her old boss, who's now suddenly a cult leader, has something to do with it. It's really entertaining. I think I'm loving it for the things that she's getting wrong in the novel, not like, I don't know, I'm not reading it ironically. I'm enjoying the writing. She's a very beautiful, wordy writer, but the premise is so silly that she's making it work. And I just kind of love this, following this obnoxious woman running around New York, meeting up these like one night flings and having to have conversations. It's a really interesting book on looking at how, be careful of what kind of information, I guess, that you're putting out there, because the internet never forgets, is what I'm trying to, is that kind of book.
And what was that title?
It's called Cult Classic.
Cult Classic.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just out in the States. It's coming out in Australia in August. So I was managed to get Booksellers School a proof copy. And I'm also just started reading John Waters' Role Models.
Nice.
Which I'm loving, because I love John Waters. I love him and I love his writing. And there's just a beautifully dark way that he writes about things. Like the dark mundane, I think, is probably the best way of saying it.
That's great. I also love Mr. John Waters as well.
Yeah.
Talk about somebody who, when you discover him, there's like a before John Waters and an after John Waters, I feel like. And once I saw a John Waters film, I was like, well, now I know this world exists. I'm going to have to watch everything this person puts out. And I made it an effort to see anything that came to a theater after that point. Like if it was coming in, like Pecker, I think was one of the first ones I got to see in a theater. And I was so excited because it's a John Waters movie, you know, it's very excited.
I remember wanting to rent them because they didn't come to in New Zealand. We didn't get them on film very often. But I do remember seeing Crybaby on TV.
Oh, yeah.
So every time I saw a John Waters movie on a thing, I had to grab it. And when I remember being like 17 and somehow found a VHS of Female Trouble, and I don't think I was the same since.
Yeah, that'll do it.
They'll do it. That movie is wild. I don't quite know if I made it all the way through it, actually, because I just remember being, I don't know what this world is. I was comfortable with Serial Mom and Crybaby because it had that John Waters-ness and Packer and oh god, was the one where they kidnap people?
This will be demented.
Several Demented. But yeah, Female Trouble is his early work, which I love now. But when you first watch it as an unready 17-year-old, you have no idea what to make of any of it.
Yeah, my first one was Pink Flamingos. And that's because that's what people talked about when you were like, I like this movie. And people were like, oh, you're into weird stuff. Have you seen Pink Flamingos? And people kept saying it and the title just didn't grab me. And so finally it was a Friday. I was having a bunch of kids over to watch movies. And I was like, all right, we're watching Pink Flamingos. And they'll never forget that.
No, they're not. I'm guessing that went down in not probably the way that title does not express what that movie is.
No, it does not say singing bubble scene at all, but there you go. Yeah. Okay, back to reading. So I was set to do an episode with a special guest, but scheduling delayed them. But it kind of set my mind on this person. And then with Pride happening, I feel like every year I read one of his memoirs. And so I'm rereading Derek Jarman's fourth memoir called Kicking the Pricks.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, I have all of his books. I think I'm missing one, but it's on my birthday wish list. I just love Derek Jarman as a director, as a person. Reading his memoirs, it's just fascinating. The fact that he found a house on a strip of rock, basically on a beach where nothing would grow, and he built a garden. I just think all the metaphors for everything that he accomplished in his life is really fascinating. And so I enjoy it. I actually just the other day we had an exterminator come, and whenever you do that, you have to leave the house for 3 hours. And my wife was at a winery doing this hot sauce wine thing, and my daughter was with her grandparents. And so I went to a coffee shop with a book, which is something that hasn't happened, and I can't tell you how long.
Oh, I miss that so much. Yeah.
I had no earbuds. There was no music. There was no podcast. I just read. And then when I got done, I just walked 3 miles home, just out looking at yards and wandering. It was really awesome. It was a little warm for me, but I wish that I hadn't brought 4 books on film that were very heavy in my bag. But other than that, it was really lovely. So anyone that wants to read about an artist, director, Derek Jarman's life, I think is really fascinating.
No, it definitely would be. I have not sat in a cafe and read for such a long time.
It felt great.
Yeah, even before COVID, I think I was falling out of the habit, which is a little sad. So I need to do that again because that was my favorite thing to do.
There's like no other distractions. Like you're just at the table with a book. Get home, you could turn the TV on, or it's just like I had nothing. So it was lovely to be focused on one thing.
It would be. Because I was one of those totally obnoxious early 20s who used to go to a cafe and sit down, order actually, this is when I hadn't gone full coffee yet. So I was still drinking mochas, which makes this even worse. And make sure everyone knew I was reading Vonnegut or Burroughs or Bret Easton Ellis. I was that 20-year-old drinking a mocha, which I think makes it even worse before I graduated onto actual coffee, which now I am fully addicted. But yeah, that was my favorite thing to do. It is such a peaceful thing to do. There's no distractions. You're just reading, you're sipping whatever drink you want. And you're just kind of also people watching in between. I need to do that again. I haven't done it in so long.
Well, and I had 2 big books about post-apocalypse films on the table. People would come up and get their flat white or whatever. And then as they're standing next to where I was, I could feel their eyes kind of drift over and be like, what is that? These huge books with people like wearing shoulder pads and swinging chains on flaming cars or whatever. But it was a good time.
Oh, I remember that. I remember reading a book. Was it just a series of memoir essays called I Wish I'd Never Been Born? And it was not even, it was more of it was funny. It was actually a funny kind of David Sedaris-esque kind of book. I had people stopping me on the train going, why are you reading that? It's Myth Warhurst. Oh, not Myth Warhurst, someone else, but that kind of caricature-esque kind of writing. And I was just, sometimes there's a few things that you can just people see looking at, what the hell is that? So I can imagine post-apocalypse books would have definitely done that because there was the era of the shoulder pad in one. I love it.
And once you get into a specific genre of film or something, you realize that other people aren't doing the same thing that you're doing. Nobody that I encounter at the farmer's market or anything is like talking to me about Italian post-apocalypse films. They can't even name any, and I'm like, I just watched 6, so let me tell you all about them. It's just like, okay, Dirk, rein it in a little bit. Which brings us to music. Anything music related that you've had on heavy rotation lately?
I go through phases, but I have been going through a big Bowie phase at the moment, even though it's been about oh God, when did Bowie die? 2014? Anyway, a long time ago now. I finally started listening to Black Star.
Oh gosh, this is a good distance because it was pretty heavy at the time.
Yes. And I have a weird thing with music where it's like usually like a decade after I decided I need to listen to it. But yeah, no, I've been listening to a lot of Bowie lately and I've been loving that. My partner has been listening to a lot of Thelonious Monk. So that's sort of been happening in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's been getting, and also a lot of old country, like 1940s country. He's a vinyl collector.
Nice.
And so I was trying to think of some of the things he's been playing, but I come in and it's this like ding, 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 like really old school Hank Williams-esque kind of country. And then next he'll throw on Thelonious Monk and it's great. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of sort of also Arctic Monkeys and Radiohead. And a very typical person who grew up in the 90s and early 20s, early 2000s. So that's the kind of music I still listen to.
Oh, same. Yeah. No, I've said it a million times probably, but my comfort zone is like late 90s.
Yes.
Really 96 to 99 was like a sweet spot. I don't know why, if it was just the perfect age for me or what, because it was when I was going off to college, getting my own apartment, these sort of pinnacle moments. And the soundtrack to that time is what I keep going back to over and over and over, or something that feels like it's from then.
Yes. I love Metric because it kind of reminds me of that alternative pop from the 90s. And I love Metric.
Yeah.
So I've seen them every single time they've come to Australia. It's just like a comfort gig and comfort albums for me. Because I was sort of looking, and I don't know whether it's because Elvis is coming out, but I was starting to go back and listen to the Romeo plus Juliet soundtrack.
Yeah.
Which was totally, oh my God. I was just listening to it going, oh my God, I feel like I'm 15 again. I listened to this nonstop. And this is the album that introduced me to Butthole Surfers and Mundy and a new Garbage. And I think I became a huge Everclear fan after that.
Go Portland, Oregon, Everclear.
Hey, yeah, they are. Oh man, I was so into Everclear. So yeah, I think there's a sweet spot in that kind of late 90s that I just keep going back to. And yeah, David Bowie's always been one of my favorite artists, but that's someone who I grew up with because he's been around since the 60s.
Well, and he just kept reinventing himself in interesting ways. And it's like in just our time, we got David Bowie, we got industrial David Bowie, we got drum and bass David Bowie. It's like it's so crazy that those albums were back to back and like such different sounds. And then he was like touring with, Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. And my friend was just telling me that we're going to see Nine Inch Nails at the Edgefield here, which is like an open amphitheater.
Nice. Yeah.
He just buys tickets and then just tells me where we're going. It's very fun. But he said, I don't know if it'll be any better because when I saw him play with Bowie, we were right up front and Bowie sang Hurt.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, dude, it's not going to be better than that. I don't know who could come out with him that would be, I don't think it's possible. But yeah, Bowie's such an icon. We recently had my friend's daughters over, my friend, she's always here, but my friend's daughter's friend over with her parents. And I asked the man what he liked. And he was like kind of glam rocky stuff around the Bowie kind of thing. And I was like, oh, have you seen Velvet Goldmine? Because, I of course have to go with movies. And he hadn't. And I was like, oh my God, you have to watch Velvet Goldmine. It is amazing.
It's the best David Bowie biopic ever I don't know. It's it's not Bowie, but it is kind of, there's a few things in there, but
it's Bowie-esque and it's Iggy Pop-esque. It's that glam thing. It's so beautiful. Placebo's even in it, which was like the soundtrack to my 20s. Yeah, it's really good. Music-wise for me, Brain Waltz Era is something I've been listening to. That's one word, Brain Waltz Era. It's Same is the name of the album. Same, one word. It's basically instrumental electronic music, kind of like Aphex Twin or Musique's more relaxed melodic stuff. It's instrumental.
Oh, yes. You send me that album because Dan might like that because he's he's got a very similar taste to music that you have.
Oh, rad. Yeah.
That very, very industrial metal and everything that surrounds it. I don't know. Dan's so
Yeah.
eclectic, but I know he does keep going back. Like he loves Tool, he loves Nine Inch Nails, he loves, yeah.
Yeah. So this is like the lighter side. So there's like some kind of drum and bassy kind of programming in there. One of my favorite things about Brain Waltera is that people don't know who it is. And I love bands when we don't know who they are, because like you'll go to Reddit or whatever and people are just like, it's Aphex Twin and this guy. And everyone's like, I don't think that's what it is at all. But nobody knows. And I just love the speculation that goes into that.
Oh, you're Dive Punk.
Yeah, it's just very fun. And then the other one I've been listening to is Parov Stellar, I think is how it's said, Parovstellar. The newest album is called Moonlight Love Affair. He samples a lot of like jazz and like 1920s and like swing stuff, and then works it into sort of poppy house music. So it's the exact opposite to like a lot of what I listen to. But on a sunny day, sometimes I just want like some glossy poppy type stuff. And it just feels goofy to me with all the swing stuff and everything. So it just lightens up the air. Sometimes he works with vocalists, so they have more traditional pop songs. I tend to usually skip those, and I just like the sample stuff. But I've never met people that really listen to Parov Stellar, so I just wanted to throw that out there in case that's something people are into. Which brings us to games. Any kind of game that you've been playing lately?
No, I'm not a gamer, though I have been watching my partner play Dying Light 2. A lot.
Oh, nice.
So usually what happens is I'm on the couch reading or doing something for editing the podcast or doing something on the couch. And my partner, Dan, he's the gamer. And after you mentioned Dying Light 2, I think it was with Matt, I sort of asked you, going, what's that game again? Dan, have you heard of Dying Light 2? He goes, no. Will I like it? I went, I think you will. Game sucks, but plays good. And that is what he likes about the game. He loves throwing people off buildings. He loves parachuting a lot.
Very fun building.
So he's just hanging out and having a good time with it. He gets annoyed when he gets stuck in the story, and he kind of gets out and then goes back out and does what he wants.
It's hard. The story is not a high point for that game. So yeah, a new DLC came out for a game called Bug Snacks. So my daughter and I are playing that. It's a game where characters kind of look like Muppets, but when you catch and feed them bugs that are made of food, you can pick which parts of their body to mutate into the food. So it's kind of like Sesame Street directed by Cronenberg.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. It goes kind of dark. Like when we played it a couple years ago when it first came out, the ending was not what my daughter expected. So it really kind of threw her for a while, but I think that's good. New DLC just came out and she was kind of off screens for a bit. So it was a real treat to get to dive back into this weird game, Bug Snacks. Which brings us to television. Anything you're watching on the old TV, episodic entertainment, as we kind of call it?
Not this month. I did start Stranger Things season 4. They've only got a couple of episodes in. Oh, actually, you know what? Me and my partner binged a show called From. It's got one of the guys from Lost, and it does have a bit of a Lost feel to it, but it's essentially about a group of people who are trapped in this town. They're usually just driving along, find a tree, and then all of a sudden, these creatures come out.
I've heard about this.
It's actually really good. I really like it. It's got a really big Stephen King vibe about it.
Okay.
Just the way the town works. Yeah, it stars Harold Perrineau, I think it's pronounced, who was in Lost. And it's just literally these people who just stuck in this place, and every night these creatures who look very human come out but want to eat them. And so you get a lot of models of people with their ribs literally just sprayed open and everything. And
I love evisceration.
There's a lot of viscera, but it's really good. I haven't finished it yet. I think we've got a few episodes, but I like where it goes. It's got this very Stephen King monster thing going on in it, and it's one of those shows that could end badly just because the premise is so good that you're like, well, where are you going to go with this? Do you have a plan, or do you just want to sort of keep going with it? But yeah, that's one I've been really enjoying at the moment. I wasn't expecting to love it as much, because usually those kind of shows I'm like, oh yeah, we'll see how it goes, because when I get tired, I'll just watch like a CSI.
Yeah, sure.
Just so I don't have to think, and I just enjoy the music and David Caruso taking his glasses off.
Yeah,
I'll be fooled again. But yeah, that was actually I was really enjoying it.
And that's From?
It's From.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna check it out. We're watching The Bear. It's on Hulu. It's about a James Beard award-winning chef who goes to Chicago to help his family sandwich shop, basically. If you know someone like yourself who knows someone in the food world, works in restaurants and whatnot, I highly recommend this series. I don't know if there's only like 8 episodes or something, but it's really good. It's billed as a comedy, but it's more like kind of stressful in the kitchen as he is turning this small family eatery kind of thing in the kitchen, the back, into like how a kitchen would run at a James Beard award-winning restaurant. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
it's really a clash of, I'm just gonna say for shorthand, like small town mentality meets like a big city kind of person coming in. There's a guy that doesn't want to take anything from this chef and thinks he knows
Mm,
everything because he's all frou-frou. But my wife is obsessed with it. 2 nights in a
mm.
row, which never happens. I went to bed and she kept watching it. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, never happens. So
Yeah.
she's very into it. I'm really enjoying it. Which brings us to movies. Anything you want to talk about in the movie section here?
Dream exploitation. So I've been watching a lot of.
Oh yeah.
I saw Devil's Honey, Vulture for the first time.
Oh,
Wow, that saxophone is not the weirdest thing in that movie.
that's as far as my wife made it in that movie, was that part. And she just goes, I don't want to watch this. And I was like, okay, you don't.
I don't blame her.
You
I
don't
don't
have-
blame you. I loved it. I love when Fulci goes full misogynist for some reason, but it is a really weird movie of like a cycle of abuse, which I was not expecting it. And some of the things it does in it, I'm just watching it going, holy shit, what
Yeah.
what is going on? And yeah, I watched Mario Brothers Shock
Oh yeah.
and also the Immortal Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster. So it's kind of the beginning of his career and there toward the end. And oh my God, Mario Bava was amazing. Yeah, Shock was turned into a Beyond the Door sequel in the States. And it was never actually meant to be a Beyond the sequel. It is literally, I don't have her name, but she used to be married to Argento. She's an amazing woman. Dario Nicolodi. Basically, she is being haunted by her ex who died. It's mysterious. Oh, he may not have died. You don't know what happened to him. But it has the same kid from Beyond the Door, and which makes you realize that red-headed children are incredibly, in fact, creepy. But no, that was a really great movie. When he goes full surreal, it's a beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah.
He can kind of juxtapose things and really give that beautiful imagery of someone losing their mind. It's really, really great. I also watched the new Alex Garland movie Men.
Oh, what'd you think of that?
I love the film work. I mean, I'm never going to hate a movie that has 1970s British folk horror references. Like, you give me The Green Man, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
I had a really amazing conversation with a friend of mine who watched it as well. And she kind of gave this amazing point of view on it. It's a little like Devil's Honey. It's about the cycle of abuse, as well as the Rory Kilner sketch show that you're stuck in where he's eating chapstick. I like it more the more I think about it, but I can see why, but it does have a notion of them just discovering that God hates women. And we're like, oh, we already know this.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's good. I mean, for the folk horror imagery of it, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I'm excited to give it a shot, but it did not pull me into the theater, unfortunately. But
I do not blame you. It did for me just because I was just like, I'm seeing some folk horror imagery that I love. And my favorite movie is The Wicker Man and Satan's Claw and all those amazing kind of things I love. So yeah, no, it's a beautiful looking movie. I mean, the way he makes this British town look, it looks like a fairy tale. It's that typical gorgeous small town British. Everything's made out of stone. Kind of the history of the Industrial Revolution kind of in the background. It's absolutely perfect scene for what happens in this movie.
yeah, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Well, my wife went to New York for a fancy food show, which left me here for 4 days, meaning once my daughter was asleep, I could watch whatever I wanted without worrying about bumming someone out. She doesn't care if I watch anything, but sometimes you don't want to put something on and have your significant other just kind of like, well, I guess I'll do emails. I don't know, So it's like, I don't want anyone to think that she dictates, what we're going to watch, or that I don't force things on people usually.
No,
for the show, but
I understand that. I mean, my partner loves movies, but I know there are certain movies I could put on which he's just going to look at me and go, why?
Yeah,
and I know this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something you need to understand someone's threshold before you put on Devil's Honey.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Exactly. And I do get it wrong sometimes. But so while she was gone, I really got into more Godfrey Ho. I have a bunch of spots that I had to fill in, some visits I wanted to retake now that I kind of understand more about his career. So yeah, I spent 4 days just watching ninjas explode, and
That was a hell of a thread. I just see the poster, and sometimes you'd put a 3 second, like a GIF.
yeah,
Wasn't quite, I think you were making them because there's no way these GIFs are
no,
just floating around
that's
in
me
the
just
ether.
filming the TV. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just watching it going, wait, did he just explode out of the car? No, there was a magic thread of a few days because it's just like, oh, what crazy ninja movie are you going to be watching? And I'd be like, what the which is usually my thing is like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it was a wild time. I love it. I hope to find more. In another episode, I'll be talking about one of his films that I found that I didn't know existed. That's not a ninja movie,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, it blew my mind. It really.
Yeah.
I have to dig more into it because I don't understand where the footage came from for this one. But anyway, one film I wanted to talk about is not Godfrey Ho. It's Venom from 1981. I see by nodding you're familiar with this film.
I just bought the Blu-ray. It is still on its way.
Oh, so you haven't seen it yet, or you have?
I have not seen it yet. I have heard of this movie and I am
Okay.
excited.
Okay, so I'll just tell people it's about a kidnapping a 10-year-old child. German terrorists negotiate a ransom with police surrounding the building. Further headache ensues when the child's deadly pet snake slithers out of the ventilation system in the London house. So it has Oliver Reed, Klaus Kinski, Sterling Hayden, and more. I believe maybe it was Carmelita that just saw this. One of our
Yes.
friends
Yeah.
watched this and posted about it, and I was like, oh yeah, like this is a good time. And I think Brady Kimball at Solid Six posted a picture that he had like rented it at Movie Madness here in Portland, Oregon, and I thought he was talking about a different Venom because the images looks different. Which
Oh,
sometimes when
yeah.
people update discs, that's all it takes for me to think I've never seen a movie. I
Just have
look
a different poster.
at a different cover and I'm just like, oh, I've never seen that. And then I watch it and I'm like, I've seen this like 9 times. Like I know what this is. I don't know why that tricked me so much, but anyone that's updating the new covers to make them all look cool, like please also offer the original cover because I appreciate the new updates, but sometimes I really am attached to that image, you know?
Yeah.
That's the only film I really want to talk about. I won't dive into it because you haven't seen it yet, and I want you to have all the discovery that you can. But anyone that's interested in a movie that has kidnapping and a snake and lots of stuff that you've never seen before, and Klaus doing Klaus Kinski to the
Oh
movie.
my God. I have heard a snippet from it, and it's Klaus Kinski, I think, yelling at the police in it. I'm not sure if he yells at, he's out the window just yelling, and he's saying nonsense. Like he's going full Klaus.
Yes,
and
it's a great scene.
I have been wanting to see this ever since, and for some reason I couldn't get a hold of it. I finally found this thing I could get, and yeah, it's still coming, but I'm very excited just because that cast. I mean, you have Oliver Reed, you have Klaus Kinski, of Sterling Hayden, who all can go big when they want
big.
to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that means it's time for our late return, and this time we're talking about Highway from 2002. The synopsis is after a man gets caught with a Vegas gangster's wife in bed, he hits the road with his best friend Pilot, and they set off on an adventure.
Oh, that says so little about what this movie is.
Yes. Was this a first time watch for you, Lindsay?
I had never heard of this movie. You sort of just messaged me and says, have you ever seen Highway from 2002? And I had to look it up because I'm like, well, it's not Freeway. I've seen that with Reese Witherspoon.
Right.
That's the kind of movie you would sort of say, have you seen? But that's not kind of if you're going to do the new releases like Returns, you're going to go for something a little bit more deeper. So I had to look it up and I went, was that the one with Jake Gyllenhaal, Jared Leto, and Selma Blaze in this movie? And you go, yes. And I went, I have never heard of it. And you were like, great.
Yeah.
So I managed to get a DVD. I still don't know how I managed to get this, but I managed to get a DVD. And I love the fact that I now own this movie.
Oh, yeah.
We were just having a conversation about how a certain period in the 90s music that we keep going back to. And then I don't even think this movie plays music from this time. I was trying to look at the actual soundtrack to this movie. And I'm like, we should probably start at the beginning. This movie's from 2002.
Correct.
Yes. What Dirk said about the premise of a young man getting caught with a gangster's wife and hitting the road with his best friend Pilot is absolutely correct. What it doesn't tell you is this movie is set in 1994,
right?
Just as Kurt Cobain has committed suicide.
Yeah.
He's died, which I understand. It was a big deal in 94. Kurt Cobain's death is one of the momentous times of the 90s.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of all, I don't even actually know where to start with this movie, so maybe we should just start with the cast.
Well, yeah, I will say that you can find this to stream, but nobody has seen this movie that I've ever met. This was on a stack that I was like, how do I get a pool boy? Like, how do I work this into the podcast before new releases and late returns was a part of the podcast? And I couldn't figure it out.
I'm a Nirvana fan.
I
I
didn't
think you
know
put
any
it together.
mob wives. I didn't know what to do. So I'm so excited we get to have the conversation. And then as I was
Yes.
talking to my wife about it, because we rewatched it together, we both independently owned this. So I don't know how that happened, but
Still don't know how I got a DVD of this thing and so
Well,
quickly.
I
Someone
know-
had it in Australia. I'm like, I can get this from what? How?
so great. Yeah, I think she had it because she loved My So-Called Life, and Jared Leto was in it. I think that's why
Yeah.
she had it. I don't know why I bought it, but I had it. It's amazing. Jared Leto's in the film. Jake Gyllenhaal, Selma Blair, John C. McGinley, Jeremy Piven, Arden Mirren, MC Gainey are all in this movie that nobody saw.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. You actually unearthed why nobody saw it.
I did. I was reading about the movie just because I was so curious. And New Line made it, and it had a big champion who was ahead of the studio. And like so many times happen at studios, they decide to get rid of one head and replace it with the other who hated it and buried it on DVD.
Yeah.
Which is why that no one saw this. And yeah, Jared Leto was big at the time. I think he was just starting 30 Seconds to Mars. I can't
Probably
remember
around
that
then.
band. Yeah. Also, My So-Called Life. Jake Gyllenhaal was just popping. Selma Blair was already well established as a huge thing. John C. McGinley was everywhere. It was just a character actor who's everywhere. Yeah, it's got a lot of things going for it. But the fact that one guy just decided he didn't like it and didn't want to put it out meant that it just kind of disappeared into the ether. And when you're watching it, it's a surreal experience because you're watching kind of movie stars being movie stars in this movie.
Yeah, it's very 2002 despite being set in 1994. So anyone that's like, interested in seeing it, it's like all of the colors, I mean the cinematography, the shots, it's all
the dialogue.
Yeah, the dialogue is super 2002. I think if they had changed the soundtrack to something current or used 1994 music, you know, or just ask Baz Luhrmann what he would have put in there because he would have done like a mix of both.
Yeah.
Then I think the film would have found more people because it totally fits in the tone of like if someone wants to watch like Very Bad Things or, you know, even like Dusk Till Dawn and things like that, these sort of kind of road trip bad news movie kind of situations. I think it's the gritty lo-fi guitar songs that are just so weird because it's not 1994.
Well, yeah, because 1994 was a hell of a year for music. I mean, my partner always says it's the best year for albums. And I was looking at the albums that came out and you're like, holy fuck, this was an amazing year for, if you were into alternative, which is what was mainstream. Actually, when I say alternative, that was what was mainstream in 94. It wasn't like, it was alternative pop was huge. If you're looking at what came out, you're like, this is the year that you, and if you've got something from 94 or even kind of around the time, you should play it. I mean, I get it being 2002 and they're looking very 2002. Everyone's dressed more 2002 than they are 94, except when you get to Seattle and everyone's in flannel because
that's how we know we're in Seattle.
That's how you know you're in Seattle. Everyone's drinking coffee and flannel. They passed like 5 coffee shops in it, which I was just giggling my ass off at. Just like, was it really that many coffee shops in Seattle?
In the 90s, they were so cool too. There was one called Coffee Messiah that you went in and it had like this bathroom where you'd put a quarter in the top of the toilet and the lights would change and it would play weird music. It had like a shrine in there.
Yeah.
It was cool stuff back then. Very quirky. It all changed in the early 2000s, but
so you sort of got this vibe, but then you don't play any other music because I kept thinking back to Fair Street 94, which a lot of people criticize for its mic drops, but at least it's kind of accurate. They're kind of playing at least music from around the time. I mean, yes, does it have a needle drop upon a needle drop? Yes, but you know you're in the mid 90s when you're listening to Insane in the Membrane or any other song that's sort of coming out. It's kind of weird. So it took me a moment to realize that they were in 94 until Kurt Cobain got mentioned. I'm like, wait, this is set in 1994? Weird. Yeah.
They look 2000s. It's weird. And to go back to what you said about needle drops, I think people are so touchy these days about nostalgia. And so when they're even mentioned or hinted at, people are just like, oh, nice, whatever, trying to trick me. And it's like, well, they're trying to create a vibe that existed back then, and music is a very fast way to do that. Yes, it can be super manipulative, Stranger Things, but also you can use it as to the best you can, like Fear Street 94, I think did.
Yeah.
I think this movie would have really benefited from a little Everclear or something in there so that we would instantly be like, oh, I know where we are. Because in Vegas in 2002 seems really like where we start. And so it gets very confusing when I'm like, did we time travel?
Yes,
What is this?
Okay, yes. In the 90s, we did have these very monologue-esque kind of things. I mean, Kevin Williams, Quentin Tarantino, but there's a very specific way it changed in the early 2000s because you get Gilmore Girls creator Amy Polio something or other. It's even long. They are stretching out it even more.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like going, did we talk like that back then? That would have been exhausting. Like if we had to like speak of the way. And when you start in Las Vegas, I was a bit worried. I'm like, oh no, everyone feels like they're on meth. I don't think I can go 90 minutes with this movie, especially the Jeremy Piven scene, which is the most Jeremy Piven scene you've ever seen in a movie. If you think very bad things, it's that on meth.
Yeah.
That monologue he does is, oh, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But then it does calm down, but it's that quick cut editing or that slow motion. I'm like, oh my God, this is so 2002.
Yeah, it really is. And I was going to mention it later, but I'll just mention it now that I do not really usually care for Jeremy Piven in things. And I think in this, it's like perfect casting. And I think it might be his best acting I've ever seen in that scene. First I was like, oh, this is a lot. And then my wife just goes, he's perfect for this role. And I was like, you were completely right. Like,
yeah,
he's so gross and sweaty and such a drug dealer. It's really something. So yeah, Very Bad Things fans should definitely check it out for that performance.
Piven at his most Piven. It's insane to watch. And he just does this full monologue of just pretty much talking about every single drug that they can get his hands on. And you're guessing that he's on all of them at that particular moment in time, the way he's playing it. Because yeah, I'm not a huge Piven fan either, but I do slightly enjoy it when he's playing the worst person in the world, and he's such a skis. And
I feel like it's close to his real character.
Yes.
Sorry if you're listening to Jeremy Piven, but I think that's why he's really good at it, and it works really well for this film. He's also not in a lot, so if you're not a fan, you don't have to worry about that. This is definitely a film that's going to keep giving you little characters along the way as they go from point A to point B.
It almost changes movie. Like it's not the same movie at all throughout the movie. It changes.
Yeah, that's very true. Jake Gyllenhaal looks like a baby in this, so if you're a fan of him in Bubble Boy, this is a perfect follow-up. It starts out and he's posing as a valet to steal people's cars, but then also bring them back, which is interesting. And then we see a shot that lived in my brain forever, where Jared Leto is the pool boy, shirtless, cleaning a pool. And I know how we all think about him now with his long hair and his guru attitude, but like, it's pretty hot for the time for 2002. I mean, I get it.
He's marble. There is not an ounce of fat on that boy. And he's got a really red mullet, which is, again, way more 2002 than it is 1994.
Nobody had that in 94.
No one had that hairstyle in 94. And he is so thin and so cut. He looks insane. I've always had a problem with his eyes because they're really round and really small and way in the center of his face. That boy is cut. Yeah. I don't know what he did. He is just
I don't know why he ever wore a shirt after that.
No.
He would have no excuse to, and nobody would question it. You'd just be like, well, yeah, I guess if I looked like that, I wouldn't own a shirt either.
No.
We see Jake Gyllenhaal selling mushrooms to a child, and then we get the line, no girl's worthy of the god of fuck, which they refer to him as the god of fuck so many times in this movie.
I think it's almost like the final line, the god of fuck. No, there's this really weird thing with, you can tell this was written by a young guy. I mean, James Cox actually has gone on to make some pretty solid movies. I was looking up his career, but when your main character, Jared Leto, hasn't busted a nut in 5 years.
Yep.
And Jake Gyllenhaal's pilot, does he have erectile dysfunction or he hasn't had sex? I was kind of confused.
So this is a movie.
It's all about erectile dysfunction, I guess.
Yeah, 1994. And it's that classic tale of two friends who just want each other to come. It's basically.
Yes.
At one point I turned to my wife and I was like, I don't remember this being a movie about two guys that just want each other to orgasm, but I guess
it is a large part of the movie.
It's so weird. There's a scene where Jake is receiving oral sex and it's Arden Mirren, who I didn't know at the time. And then I see her now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's really crazy. And then we get an awesome one-er shot where they're walking through, I think to Jeremy Piven, but it's through the graveyard of signs from Vegas.
Yeah.
It's a one shot. It's a really cool thing to see these. Sometimes when you watch a movie like this, maybe you don't care for Highway 2002, but getting to see Jared Leto and Jake Gyllenhaal at this point in their careers do like a one shot that, they had to do a couple different times as the camera's snaking through the signs. It's like, it's a neat little time capsule to see. I mean,
Yeah, because because it was a really fiddly little shot, and they would have both kind of just got a little bit of clout, got a little bit of okay, they're getting a little bit of heat behind them, but they still have to do what the director says. They don't necessarily have the power to tell even a first-time director, who I think this is James Cox's first, possibly. I should have looked that up. But yeah, it's got some really cool little shots in there, and sort of the filmmaking and where he decides to shoot. I mean, there's one later on where they're pretty much at a truck stop just outside Seattle, and they're kind of running in between out of like these containers or trucks. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some really cool little stuff in there, but then you're watching it going, oh, we're in a John Waters movie now with a sideshow. What? You do get that shot of them walking through the old kind of decrepit, because it's very much about these kids are dirt poor. They live in a trailer park. Their parents are obviously drunk and abusive. They live in the detritus of Las Vegas. And I think that's a really cool way of showing that they're just wandering through the signs. They're not living in the hotels. They're not even middle class. They are in the dirt, pretty much. So
they're like the rats scurrying along.
Yes.
Jerry Piven also talks to Jared Leto's dick in this movie, which is the only movie I think where Jeremy Piven talks to Jared Leto's dick.
Gets right down at eye level. Because he can't bust a nut. Everyone's obsessed with the fact, and everyone knows.
It's so weird, which I think is what 30 Seconds to Mars, the band title, is actually. It's all about Jared Leto orgasming.
Yeah, that would not surprise me.
So they set off on their road trip and hit up a place of prostitution, which is a real crazy scene.
Oh my God, that guy.
Yeah, there's a real disgusting man in the scene. Then they go to a diner and we see Salma Hayek. She's homeless. A guy tries to assault her, but the boys step in, and now we have our trio. I'm a sucker for these movies where the group of misfits come together on a road trip. I think every generation deserves like 4 or 5 of them, because we need these road trips in our lives. John C. McGinley comes into play at a rave. So now there's kind of 4 of them, and he comes and goes throughout the time. We learned Kurt Cobain killed himself, so it's not 2002.
Nope, it's 1994, people.
They're driving through Washington, so they pass Snoqualmie Falls, which is where they shot the waterfall from Twin Peaks, which is in Oregon and Washington. We love the Twin Peaks. We go to the diner to eat the pie and drink the coffee, and we love.
As you should. Yep.
So they cut the top off the car while Jake's in it. It looks crazy and dangerous. Yeah,
because I do love Selma Blair in this movie. I think she's adorable. I think she's amazing. I think she's kind of running circles around the boys because she's a little bit more experience. And she just says, you're doing a road trip wrong. You need a convertible. So Leto just gets out like a saw thing and just starts cutting off the car with Jake inside.
Yeah, they go to see Jake the Alligator Boy, which is an actual thing in Washington at the, oh my gosh, I think it's Long Beach. They have the world's giant frying pan, and then they have this museum you can go to, but it's a small mummified thing. It's not a bog with a guy in it.
With an actual person in there. Yeah.
Right. But if people want to see what that is, just look up Jake the Alligator Boy, and you'll see what they were kind of basing this off of very loosely. The whole situation really changes Jake. And then we get our drug road trip scenes, which I'm a big fan of. Selma's story is going to a place called Dandy Fine. Oh, that's when she had a sexual history, I guess, or something.
There's always a thing in the 90s into early 2000s. As soon as you find out the female romantic interest has a sexual history, it will be an issue.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is a bit eye-rolling now, because you're like, so what?
It's a movie about 2 guys having sex with whoever they can. And like, the second they're like, you were with someone before? Like, it's just so stupid. But
it's so stupid. Though, admittedly, the one thing I did like is that Jared Leto's character gets over it really quickly.
Yeah.
He has one moment, he has a conversation with her, and then he's just like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. It's skip it. Sorry, I'm always all over the place, but it's more Jake Gyllenhaal's character that really lets loose on someone's going to call her a whore at some point. He does it for like 5 minutes. Yeah. And Pilot. Yeah. But that's the one thing I did like. It was just like, okay, they found out she had a sexual history. He gets over it really, really quickly, which I did appreciate, because usually it's going to fester throughout the movie. And he's just like, I don't care. Which is like, because this whole movie is you having sex with whoever you guys you can, and talking intimate about why you can't either of you can get ejaculate. Yeah. So the fact that Selma has had a sexual history does not matter whatsoever. But so that is one thing. But that is something you just get in movies from even like 10 years ago. You still get that
Oh,
kind of
sure.
stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
The
yeah, you do. Yeah.
2010s for sure.
Yeah.
Next, Jared and Selma have sex, and it's pretty hot. It's a pretty good scene.
Two good looking people having sex. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. At like the peak of their life. It's like,
Yeah.
I forget which actress it was that I read in an interview, but people were like, weren't you nervous being naked on film? And she was like, this is the hottest I'll ever look. Like, this is what I want pictured on film.
Yeah, they make that point in the movie X, which is
That's
about
yeah.
about they're making an independent porn movie, and the whole point is them saying we're hot right now, so we're never going to be this hot, so we might as well put it on film and show everyone how hot we are.
Oh, I think it was Helen Mirren was the person I read in the interview too. I think that's who it was.
Oh, that woman still looks hot, probably still hot, looks hot naked.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're that hot and you know you're that hot, it's like, I'm never going to look this good again. Might as well go naked.
Yep. So it's the whole shirt conundrum again. Like, it's just like, next they return and find rednecks messing with the alligator boy. I always hate stuff like that. But like you said, this movie moves at a brisk pace. So we don't ever stay with one thing for too long. And then they hit Kelso, Washington, which is not a great place. So then, the spider face in Seattle. So they take drugs and Pilot has someone draw a spider on his face, and
yes,
it's so weird. There's a whole fountain set piece, and it's so funny every time I think of this because we took our daughter there when she was 3 and not knowing, we weren't doing like a tour of the highway film.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird to see it and you're just like, ew, this feels gross. He's on like hallucinogenics. He's got the spider drawn on his face. They're talking about death. It's just like, ugh. This is a roadie moment.
I was going to actually ask you, because you live more in Oregon, but you grew up around this area.
Yep.
During this time, like even in 94, you were running around. So it would have, I was going to ask you, which you've already sort of half answered, that you do know these places intimately.
Yeah.
You've been to these places and now you're watching it back on film going, oh, I've been to that place. Now you're making it look gross or weird. And the fact that you were in this area when Kurt Cobain died, I can imagine, I know it was a big deal in New Zealand, like let alone what it would have been like in that corner of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been, you just watching this movie going, yeah, I know all of this. This is
if they had the music right, I would be like, this is amazing. But
yes, they don't.
They don't. It feels so weirdly odd.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. I mean, because we had a lot of music coming out of like Oregon, Portland especially, and then Seattle, of course, right next door. We're like 3 hours away.
Yeah.
In the 90s, we're like doing road trips to see shows in Portland and Seattle, like as much as possible. And so, yeah, seeing like grungy little teens sitting around, I was like, yep, that's what we did. Like that was pretty much it. I never drew a spider on my face, but yeah, this takes me right back there. And I lived in Seattle for a year, 1999 to 2000. So yeah, I was in it. I was in the zone of this film. But they do an interesting job. There's a lot of movies set in Portland that really remix the city, and I get a big kick out of that all the time. There was one with Benicio del Toro, and he rides on top of one of it's called the Max. It's a train that goes through town. But he rides it on a bridge that it does not go on, and he's heading into downtown, and then when he jumps off of it, it's called The Hunted. The movie's called The Hunted. He jumps off of it and he's in a forest, and there's like, no, you would be like in downtown. Like it's just, it's so I love that stuff. So then they get caught in an alley and they break his feet. We get a soft close as they all come together, and they basically are like, life will choose a path. So it all was pointless that we went on this road trip, I guess. And that's the end of the film. So Lindsay, final thoughts for Highway from 2002.
I think it's a fascinating movie. I mean, I can understand them not getting the rights to Nirvana, because in 2002, it was very hard to get. Now Nirvana gets played everywhere. It's like, you hear it on constantly. So you hear it, I'm always sad when I hear it on like a Classic FM. I'm like, stop playing Nirvana, please. I feel old. But I can understand them not getting the rights to Nirvana, even though it's meant to be kind of this thing in the background. But there are other music from that time period that you could have easily played to go. And yeah, as you said before, music is such an easy way of going, oh, this is where we are.
That's where we are.
You can even tell in terms of geography where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas would have been listening to slightly different kind of tone of band than Seattle would have been, even though the grunge movement was huge in 94. But they've still got different local bands you could have played with that would have given you that feel. And it feels like they spent all the money on the actors, because not only in 2002, John C. McGinley would not have been cheap, I could have imagined. I mean, he's a character actor. He's great in it. He's great as an old stoner in it, but what this movie would have been if they'd chosen maybe slightly unknowns and maybe put more money into getting music rights, I don't know. It's a truly fascinating movie. I was sort of watching it going, this feels so nostalgic for 2002 more than it does for 1994.
Yeah.
But since 2002 was kind of the year that I was in my early 20s, I had my own income, I was partying more. So I can kind of I related to it on that feel of what it was like being really young and broke and just drinking way too much and doing all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a weird off-kilter movie, but there's some really beautiful parts. Like I kind of love the freak show element.
Mm-hmm.
And how sad the mother is, especially when she says the cops don't come, you're the one who decided to put your son in a freak show, so you have to deal with the trouble, is such a heartbreaking thing because you do find out a lot about that family and kind of this is what they do to survive. It's not, she is exploiting her son, but her choices aren't as full as some other people's would be during, I don't know. It goes into some very complicated, messy things and how people treat each other, sort of what you like misfits just going on the road and kind of finding yourself, which I think this is an absolute movie of that. It's literally two boys learning how to come.
Yes.
Which they both do.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. They ejaculate. But I like kind of the misfits on the road.
Yeah, same.
Just going into weird places and untidy places. And it's definitely that. Because I thought I was getting into a freeway movie. It's that for like 5 minutes. Like that really skeezy, everyone's on meth. Everyone's icky, but once they get out into the road into more the leafy areas of Northern California, it actually becomes a much more softer, gentler movie. There's a lot of interesting stuff happen. I really miss the music. It's like having a Bowie biography without the Bowie music.
Right.
And I've done 2 of those.
Yeah, if they had started, like you said, in Vegas with something more regional, Vegas-y, like, I don't know, Coral Nut Zippers or something that had some Vegas-y feel. And then as they went into Washington, introduced things like Bikini Kill, because that's regional.
Yes.
Leader Kinney is literally a street and a road. You could even steal some of the Portland stuff in there, like the cherry patties and stuff. But like
exactly,
when he was on the acid or mushrooms, I forget which one, and he's got the spider in his face and he's mourning with all of these people, if you dropped a Nirvana song, like some slow song or something in there, that would have been blow people away. And instead it was like, I don't know who this is or what's happening.
Yes, there is a little bit of that because you don't know why anyone's doing anything in this movie. And I think that is the point to a lot of it. But at the same time, it's, there's no kind of grounding of where you are, what's going on. And you do realize then, that's why music plays such an important role in film.
Right.
When filmmakers do it right and have no music, that is an absolute point. This one kind of feels like they just didn't have time to put it in. So they put some weird guitar instrumentals in.
Yeah, like maybe they were about to apply the soundtrack and then that's when it got shelved or whatever. And ended up pushing it out. I don't know. I would love it if there was like an audio track or something that we could listen to that would actually tell the story of why this happens. Because this happens to a lot of movies and some of them were great and sit around for like 3 years like Trick or Treat did. And just gets put out and everyone's like finds it on their own, hopefully. But it doesn't get like a theatrical run like that really deserved. Well, Lindsay, thank you for coming on again. Thank you for watching and now owning Highway from 2002.
I own Highway from 2002. I have access to it. So if anyone wants to see this movie, I do have it. No, thank you so much for having me on. This is always a blast getting to hang out with you. And so this was no different. This was amazing.
Thank you. Schlock and Oz, the podcast. Read and Geek on Twitter one more time. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns.